The morning sun filtered through the blinds as Mark Johnson's eyes fluttered open, his mind still foggy with sleep. But the fog cleared instantly when he registered the impossible sight before him: Eliza Winters, his intimidating CEO and the woman who held his career in her perfectly manicured hands, was standing in his kitchen, making coffee, wearing nothing but his faded University of Michigan t-shirt. Their eyes met, and what she said next would change everything. "I think your daughter might need more than just a father in her life." If you've ever wondered how two people from completely different worlds could find their way to each other through impossible circumstances, stay with me until the end of this story, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to see more incredible true-life stories that will warm your heart and restore your faith in humanity. Mark Johnson had never planned on being a single father. At 34, he had imagined a different life, one where he and his wife Sarah would raise their daughter Lily together, watching her grow into the amazing person they knew she would become. But life had other plans. Sarah's diagnosis came when Lily was just 3 years old: aggressive breast cancer that had already spread to her lymph nodes. The doctors gave her a year. She lasted 8 months. Now, 2 years later, Mark was still trying to figure out how to be both mother and father to a 5-year-old girl who asked questions he didn't know how to answer. Questions like why mommy had to go to heaven, and if she was ever coming back, and why other kids at kindergarten had mommies who picked them up after school. Each question was a knife to his heart, but he did his best, working as a mid-level marketing manager at Winters Innovations, a tech company that had, thankfully, good benefits and somewhat flexible hours. Eliza Winters had inherited Winters Innovations from her father 5 years ago. At 36, she was the youngest CEO in the company's history and one of the few female CEOs in the tech industry. The business press called her the Ice Queen for her ruthless business acumen and seemingly emotionless approach to leadership. Employees called her that too, but never to her face. Everyone knew Eliza lived for the company: no husband, no children, not even a pet as far as anyone knew. Just work, from dawn until well past dusk. Mark had only spoken directly to Eliza a handful of times, usually during company-wide meetings where she would briefly acknowledge his department's contributions before moving on to more pressing matters. He admired her from afar, her intelligence, her drive, her ability to command a room, but he also feared her a little. Stories of her firing executives on the spot for underperformance were legendary within the company. So how did Eliza Winters end up in his modest suburban kitchen, wearing his shirt, on a random Tuesday morning? The story begins the previous afternoon. Mark was in the middle of a presentation to the executive team when his phone vibrated in his pocket. Normally, he would never check his phone during such an important meeting, but Lily's school was the only contact set to bypass his "Do Not Disturb" settings. He discreetly glanced at the screen and felt his heart drop. Lily's school was calling. He excused himself and stepped into the hallway. "Mr. Johnson? This is Mrs. Patel from Oak Ridge Elementary. Lily has a fever of 102, and she's complaining of a sore throat. We need you to come pick her up as soon as possible." Mark felt the familiar panic rise in his chest, the one that came whenever he had to choose between being a good employee and being a good father. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said, already calculating how he could possibly finish his presentation, which was crucial for a new marketing campaign. When he returned to the conference room, Eliza Winters was staring directly at him, her piercing blue eyes seeming to see right through him. "Is everything all right, Mr. Johnson?" she asked, her voice cool and professional. "My daughter is sick at school. I need to go pick her up," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm sorry, but I'll have to reschedule this presentation." He expected disapproval, maybe even anger. What he didn't expect was for Eliza to stand up and say, "Send me your presentation slides. I'll review them tonight. Go take care of your daughter." The room fell silent. No one had ever seen Eliza Winters show that kind of understanding about personal matters. Mark thanked her and rushed out, too concerned about Lily to dwell on the unusual moment. By the time he got Lily home from the doctor's office, strep throat, as he had suspected, it was nearly 6 o'clock. He gave her the antibiotics the doctor had prescribed, made her favorite soup, and settled her on the couch with a Disney movie. She fell asleep halfway through, her small body burning with fever despite the medicine. Mark was carrying her to bed when his doorbell rang. Confused, he wasn't expecting anyone. He gently laid Lily down and went to answer the door. When he opened it, he nearly gasped aloud. Eliza Winters was standing on his porch, holding a laptop bag and what appeared to be a container of food. "Ms. Winters," he stammered. "What are you doing here?" "You left before finishing your presentation," she said matter-of-factly. "The campaign launches next week. We need to finalize the details." Before he could respond, Lily called out from her bedroom, "Daddy?" "Who's there?" "Just a friend from work, sweetheart," he called back. "Go back to sleep." But Lily appeared in the hallway, her hair tousled, her cheeks flushed with fever. "I don't feel good," she whimpered. Mark immediately went to her, kneeling down to feel her forehead. "I know, baby. The medicine will start working soon." To his astonishment, Eliza knelt down beside him. "Hello," she said to Lily, her voice softer than Mark had ever heard it. "My name is Eliza. I work with your dad. I'm sorry you're not feeling well." Lily studied her with the frank curiosity only children possess. "You're pretty," she said finally. "Are you Daddy's girlfriend?" Mark felt his face flush with embarrassment. "Lily, that's not." But Eliza laughed, actually laughed, a sound Mark had never heard before. "No, I'm just your dad's boss. But thank you for the compliment." Mark expected Eliza to leave then, to reschedule their meeting for when his personal life wasn't so chaotic. Instead, she set her laptop bag down and opened the container she'd brought. "I thought you might not have had time to eat, so I brought some dinner. It's just pasta from the Italian place near the office, but it's good." He was too stunned to do anything but accept her unexpected kindness. They ended up working at his kitchen table while Lily dozed on the couch, waking occasionally for medicine or water. Eliza was different here, away from the office, still focused and brilliant, but also more human somehow. She asked questions about the campaign that showed she had actually read his proposal thoroughly, and she offered insights that made it even stronger. As the night wore on, Mark found himself sharing more than just work details. He told her about Sarah, about how hard it had been to raise Lily alone, about his fears that he wasn't enough for his daughter. He wasn't sure why he was confiding in Eliza Winters of all people, but something about the quiet kitchen and the late hour broke down the usual barriers. To his surprise, Eliza listened. Really listened. And then she shared too, about losing her mother young, about her father grooming her to take over the company from the time she was a teenager, about the loneliness of being a woman in charge. "People think I don't understand what it's like to have personal responsibilities," she said, twirling pasta around her fork. "But I do. I just chose a different path." By the time they finished working, it was past midnight. Lily's fever had finally broken, and she was sleeping peacefully in her room. Mark walked Eliza to the door, feeling strangely reluctant to see her go. "Thank you," he said. "Not just for understanding about today, but for coming here, for helping with the campaign, for the food." Eliza smiled, a real smile that transformed her face. "You're a good father, Mark. And a good employee. The company is lucky to have you." As she turned to leave, a sudden downpour began, sheets of rain illuminated by the porch light. Eliza stepped back from the deluge. "I don't suppose you have an umbrella I could borrow?" Mark searched, but couldn't find one. "I can drive you home," he offered. She shook her head. "I can't leave my car here. And you can't leave Lily." They were at an impasse when a crack of thunder shook the house, followed immediately by a power outage that plunged them into darkness. From Lily's room came a frightened cry. "Daddy!" Mark fumbled for his phone flashlight. "I'm coming, Lily." He turned to Eliza. I'm sorry, but... Go, she said. I'll be fine. But as Mark comforted Lily, who was terrified of the storm, the rain only intensified. When he returned to the living room, Eliza was still there, looking out at the flooded street where her expensive car was parked. You should stay, he heard himself say. At least until the storm passes. I can make up the couch. She hesitated, then nodded. Thank you. Mark found her a t-shirt and sweatpants to sleep in, both comically large on her slender frame. He made up the couch with sheets and a pillow, feeling strangely nervous, as if he were back in high school preparing for a first date. If you need anything, I'm just down the hall, he said. Bathroom is the first door on the right. Eliza thanked him, and they said an awkward goodnight. Mark checked on Lily one more time, then went to his own room, his mind spinning with the surreal turn the day had taken. His boss, the Ice Queen herself, was sleeping on his couch. He fell into an uneasy sleep, wondering what the morning would bring. He woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of quiet voices. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming, that Sarah was still alive, making breakfast while chatting with Lily. Then reality crashed back, and he remembered, Eliza Winters had spent the night on his couch. He pulled on a t-shirt and jeans and made his way to the kitchen. What he saw there stopped him in his tracks. Eliza was at the stove, making what appeared to be pancakes. She had changed out of the sweatpants he'd lent her, but she was still wearing his University of Michigan t-shirt, which hung to mid-thigh on her. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, so different from her usual perfect chignon. Lily was sitting at the counter, talking animatedly about her kindergarten class. Neither of them noticed him at first, and Mark took a moment to absorb the domestic scene before him. There was something so right about it, about Eliza in his kitchen, about Lily chattering happily to an adult who wasn't him. It made his heart ache with a longing he hadn't allowed himself to feel since Sarah died. Then Lily spotted him. Daddy. Eliza is making pancakes with faces. And she said she went to the same college as you. Eliza turned, a spatula in hand, looking surprisingly at ease. Good morning. I hope you don't mind. Lily was hungry, and I thought pancakes might help her feel better. I don't mind, Mark said, finding his voice. Thank you. He joined them at the counter, accepting the cup of coffee Eliza handed him. The three of them ate breakfast together, and Mark marveled at how comfortable it felt, how natural. Lily was clearly enchanted with Eliza, and to his amazement, Eliza seemed equally taken with his daughter, listening to her stories with genuine interest and answering her endless questions with patience. After breakfast, Lily went to get dressed, leaving Mark and Eliza alone in the kitchen. There was a moment of awkward silence as the reality of their situation reasserted itself. They weren't friends or family sharing a meal, she was his boss, and this was deeply unprofessional. I should go, Eliza said, gathering her things. Thank you for letting me stay. Of course, Mark replied. Thank you for understanding about yesterday, and for helping with Lily. She nodded, then hesitated. Mark, Whatever she was about to say was interrupted by Lily bounding back into the room, now dressed in a mismatched outfit of purple leggings and a green dinosaur t-shirt. Eliza, are you leaving? Can't you stay and watch Frozen with me? Eliza knelt down to Lily's level. I'm sorry, sweetheart, but I have to go to work. Maybe another time. Lily's face fell. Promise? Eliza glanced up at Mark, a question in her eyes. He gave a small nod, not entirely sure what he was agreeing to, but knowing he wanted to see Eliza again outside of work. I promise, she told Lily, who beamed and threw her arms around Eliza's neck in a hug that clearly caught the CEO by surprise. After a moment, Eliza hugged her back, and Mark saw something in her expression that made his breath catch, a softness, a vulnerability he'd never associated with the formidable Eliza Winters. When Lily released her, Eliza stood and gathered her things. Mark walked her to the door, aware of a tension between them that hadn't been there before. "I'll see you at the office," she said formally, as if trying to re-establish professional boundaries. "Right," Mark agreed. "Of course." She turned to go, then stopped. "Mark, about last night and this morning. I'd appreciate if you didn't mention it to anyone at work." He understood immediately. The Ice Queen couldn't be seen having a personal life, let alone spending the night at an employee's house. "I won't say anything," he promised. She nodded her thanks and left, her car pulling away from the curb as Mark watched from the doorway, feeling as if something important had just slipped through his fingers. The next few weeks were strange. At work, Eliza was exactly as she had always been, professional, focused, demanding. If anything, she seemed to avoid Mark more than before, speaking to him only when necessary and always with others present. He began to think he had imagined the connection between them, that the night of the storm had been an anomaly never to be repeated. But then came the small signs that something had changed. A children's book about dealing with grief appeared on his desk with no note. His proposal for more flexible working hours for parents was approved without question. And once, passing in the hallway, Eliza asked quietly, "How's Lily?" before continuing on her way without waiting for an answer. Mark was confused by these mixed signals, unsure what to make of them or how to respond. He wanted to talk to Eliza, really talk, like they had that night, but he couldn't find a way to bridge the professional gap between them. The situation came to a head a month after the storm, at the company's annual charity gala. Mark usually skipped these events, finding childcare was difficult, and he felt out of place among the executives and their spouses, but this year, his presence had been specifically requested by the marketing director, who wanted him to speak about the successful campaign he'd developed. He arranged for Mrs. Chen, his elderly neighbor who sometimes watched Lily, to stay with her for the evening. Lily was disappointed. She had been asking about Eliza regularly since that morning, but Mark promised her a special breakfast the next day to make up for it. The gala was held at an upscale hotel downtown, all crystal chandeliers and champagne flutes. Mark felt uncomfortable in his one good suit, which he hadn't worn since Sarah's funeral. He gave his presentation, accepted congratulations from colleagues, and was counting the minutes until he could reasonably leave when Eliza appeared at his side. She looked stunning in a midnight blue gown, her hair swept up elegantly, diamonds at her ears. But it was the warmth in her eyes when she looked at him that took his breath away. "Your presentation was excellent," she said. "The campaign numbers are impressive." "Thank you," he replied, trying to maintain a professional demeanor despite the way his heart was racing. "The team worked hard on it. You led them well." She paused, then added more quietly, "How's Lily?" "She's good." Her strep cleared up completely. "She asks about you, actually." Something flickered across Eliza's face, pleasure, perhaps, or longing. "Does she?" "All the time. She wants to know when you're coming back to make pancakes." Eliza smiled, a real smile that transformed her face. "I make good pancakes." "You do," Mark agreed, returning her smile. They stood there, smiling at each other like fools, until someone called Eliza's name, breaking the moment. She excused herself, and Mark watched her go, feeling both elated and frustrated by their brief exchange. He